Matt.
It's all speculation. We don't know what's going to happen in federal court today, so let's kind of move on from that. But let's do a little hypothetical questioning here. If Florida remains in the Bush column, where do we go from there?
Well, it's pretty hard to see how Al Gore can win. Even if New Mexico were to be allotted to Al Gore, it would still only give him 260 electoral votes. He already has the other close states, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Oregon.
All right. Now, if if Florida moves to the Gore column, what does the Bush campaign do from here?
They have not ruled out asking for recounts in Iowa, in Wisconsin, in Oregon, and they have moved to secure the ballots in New Mexico. If they won all those states, reversed the outcome, if you will, in Oregon, in Iowa, in Wisconsin, and held on to New Mexico, they would have enough electoral votes to be elected president.
However, the Bush campaign has for the past couple of days said, okay, here, folks, wait a second. You know, these recounts are getting ridiculous. It's going to be very difficult for that campaign to then come out publicly and say, let's go to other states, let's have recounts.
Yeah, but people thought it would be ridiculous for them to then go into federal court and seek an injunction like they are today, Matt. What they did is they watched Democrats within the state of Florida, and frankly, the Gore campaign expressed support for some of those lawsuits, both Secretary Daley and Secretary Christopher, although the candidate's name were not formally on them. But then suddenly the Bush campaign reversed itself and said, look, we're going to go into court ourselves, and we'll hear that this morning.
Tactically, there is a huge battle going on behind the scenes now in Florida, Tim. How are both sides handling that, in your opinion?
Well, the battle is as follows. These 4 Democratic counties are critical to Al Gore. They voted disproportionately for him in the election on Tuesday, and he believes a hand count will give him a disproportionate amount of the votes. And any contested vote is decided at the local level, generally by a vote of 2-1. The 2 Democratic watchers saying count it, and the Republicans saying no. That's why the Secretary of State's decision to stop all counting at 5 o'clock tomorrow looms so critical. If, in fact, she says, that's it, either you give me your machine count or your hand count up to now and certify it as your official count, or your votes do not count from your county, that would seem to strongly favor Governor Bush. That's why some of the counties are going to go into court today asking for an extension from that 5 o'clock deadline.
And if they don't get that extension, clearly the Gore campaign is going to go to court to try and force an extension.
Absolutely. And, Matt, if in fact they get an extension and those 4 Democratic counties are allowed to continue their hand count, will Governor Bush's campaign then say, wait a minute, what about the Republican counties? Let's go have a hand count from them.
But was it a tactical error, Tim? Was it a tactical error for the Bush campaign not to do that in advance? I mean, they've missed some deadlines already.
Well, that's open to question because Friday was Veterans Day, and whether or not the 72 hours after the election actually expired on that day or does expire today. And would the Gore campaign waive any objections to a statewide recount by hand, or would a judge order a statewide recount by hand even if the deadline had expired in order to guarantee a full and honest count? It is an extraordinary, delicate, sensitive, chaotic situation, and we simply don't know what's going to happen.
Was Senator Lieberman correct for Bush to go into some Republican counties and ask for a recount, hoping to get more of the vote in those counties? Does he have to prove that there are some irregularities in the voting there?
Well, it can be requested because of the closeness of the race or an anomaly. But practically every county I've looked at in Florida, someone can demonstrate some anomaly. In Duval County, for example, which Governor Bush carried, 22,000 votes were disqualified. That clearly would be enough on its face to seek a hand recount if the date has not expired or if it was waived.
I know you're not a betting man, but look at the finish line for me. A week at Election Day, we were saying probably by this Friday. You don't think that anymore, do you?
Matt, you know, 10 days ago I said something. It's not up to me.
Wait a second, Tim. Wait a second. Matt. You have tampered with that board. It was the words Florida were much weaker last week. You've rewritten those, haven't you?
It's not my call. These are the people who are going to decide whether this thing ends tomorrow, ends Friday, ends a month from now. It better end by December 18th. Otherwise, Florida's votes won't count in the Electoral College.